Hey everyone, wanted to do a recap of my experience playing Ace in Eggman's 128 person double box tournament. I am very, very tired right now. I played from 8 p.m. all the way to 2 a.m. and now we are up again in the morning doing it all over again. We're going to do this review of the deck list of my matchups and kind of talk about some of the things I'm trying to do with this list ahead of the next big event, which is probably Saturday's Treasure Cup, which I unfortunately won't be able to stream, but I will definitely try and talk about in a video sometime next week. So yeah, first things first, let's go over the deck list. It's very similar to the list I posted on a couple days ago with some minor tweaks and ratio changes, and I'll talk about kind of like how good cards were, how bad cards were, and stuff like that. So right off the bat, we are a Whitebeard Pirates Ace. I think this is self-explanatory. Pretty much every card we want to see is found by EZO for the most part, and if they're not found by EZO, they're found by Dadon. And you might be wondering why EZO and Dadon instead of Buggy. A couple reasons. You'll see what we're looking for with Dadon in a second, but also Buggy does not have counter, and you already kind of run a lot of bricks. So the Dadon is a very nice alternative that finds your EZO, which then finds all of your other important things, but also finds things like Nico Robin. And you may be asking yourself, why play Nico Robin when Seaquake is available and Seaquake is just better in terms of what you can remove. So Seaquake can remove any 5k as long as you have your Otamas and or other cost reduction. Nico Robin is a body, and bodies on board is a huge thing in this meta. It's very important against Sakazuki. It's very important against Purple Luffy. It's very important against Enel. Bodies on board, swings on board is what you need. And so having two of Nico Robin as an alternative to Seaquakes gives me some consistency with Dadon, and also allows me to get extra swings in the early game and in the late game with some surprise Makinos. So Makinos are 2k. One of our 2ks, searchable by Dadon, can buff EZO, can buff Robin, and then that gives us another 5k body to swing with, which is the difference between a win or a loss. It's that early game pressure that they don't expect from these one drops. And then they spend a turn removing your Robin and your Makino, which is like good for you in the long run. It's also like a surprise late game. If you have like two of these in your hand, you just turn a 2k power nothing into a huge threat all of a sudden, which a lot of players don't expect. So these are really good all together. And then obviously for our other 2Ks, we have Rotamas, which is just a staple of the Ace deck. You need to be able to lower the cost of things. This brings pretty much everything within range of something that you have. So we have a lot of removal options, and the Otama is really just the centerpiece of that. The risk here that I think is really important to recognize as an Ace player is that we run a lot of 2Ks, and we have more, but they're all very playable and very important. And so in a normal deck, when you run 12 2Ks and you may see 4, that's fine because you're using those 4 to counter. In Ace, when you run 12 2Ks and you see 4, you're probably using those 4 to play at some point. Maybe you're using half of them, maybe you're using 3. So you really have to be aware of your counter power and try to use these cards effectively in a way that's getting you value and not just like a wasted play, because you may not see other 2Ks come in, and so that's why it's good to be careful with it. But yeah, these are all very good cards, and that's why the Dawn helps. So that's really the main reason. The Dawn finds all our 2Ks for the most part, and it finds these kind of like centerpieces for a lot of our strategies throughout the matchups. All right, we got last 2Ks I wanted to go over before I jumped into the rest of the deck. Jozu's very self-explanatory, searchable by EZO, and also a rush card against Sakazuki in those like last few turns if you are desperate and you just want to get a second attack in. Also good against Enel. Not the best rush card, but it is a 2k. It's searchable. It's basically 5 Dawn for a 5k swing, which is not great, but it does it. Sometimes all you need is 2 swings and Jozu gets you there. All right, now on to our attackers. We have 3 Rush Zoros. You'll notice in this list there's a lot of 2s and 3s, which I don't love. I typically try to have a very consistent list with like 4s and things like that. And Ace feels like you do need to kind of spread him out a little more. There's a lot of things that you want to include. There's a lot of searchers in the stack, and so 2s and 3s are a little more common. But right now, Zoro is a 3 of. Really great card. Good early pressure. Good like mid-turn card. Like if you're at 5 Dawn and there's really nothing to pop with the Marco, Sometimes it's nice to be able to just play Zoro and swing for 7. So 5 with leader, 7 with Zoro, and that's just some good pressure. And then you can do something more interesting next turn. And so I really, really like this card. I'm happy with him at 3. I think Rush is very important against Sakazuki, and it's what makes that matchup favored for Ace, the Rush plus the removal. Part of me wonders if I can bring him down even lower, but I think 3 is a good number for him. Next, we got 3 of the 4-drop Marcos. I'll be honest, I don't think I used this card's effect once. Like, I don't think I used him as a blocker at any time. Like, I played him against Sakazuki once just to get a body on board, and it was removed, and I was happy with that because I didn't really care about having him on the board, and I wasted like 2 cards out of Sakazuki's hand. But yeah, I don't think I used this card as a blocker at all in any of the matches. I would have to rewatch the VOD. I think maybe one turn. There might have been one matchup where I got it on board. So I'm not sure. I had a couple matches where I think I would have liked to see him or would have liked to play him, but I don't know. I played the kind of all my matches yesterday very aggressively, and so Marco didn't really fit in there. And so as I think about changes, the decks I want to do better against are largely Enel and Purple Luffy, and so maybe these 4-drop 5k blockers are just not as relevant in this meta, and there's room to take those out and put other things that are stronger into Purple Luffy and Enel. I don't know what those things are right now. I need to think on it, but if you guys have ideas in the comments on like what red cards help you into the Enel matchup or even the Purple Luffy matchup, please drop those in the comments. I always like getting thoughts from the folks watching the videos. All right, 3 of the 5-drop Marco. This card is really good. It removes 5Ks for us. It can remove like brand news and Rebecca's and things like that. It's a 6K attacker, which is really valuable in this meta, and it's hard to get rid of. So most people don't even bother attacking into it because they know you can just discard an event and it comes back. So it's a really, really nice card. Sakazuki always bottom decks it with Houndblaze or Borsellino. That's fine. That's fine because we have a backup. We have Sabo, the Spice MVP of the deck. Really interesting to play. If you don't know what Sabo does, he can remove up to 2 cards whose total power equals 4,000. So that is like a brand new and a Rebecca, or if you have cards that reduce cost, it's a lot more. Or it's just an Otama into a 6K, and then Sabo can remove that. So if those pesky 6K attackers like Lucci, like Captain Kid Blocker, like Queen, are not in range with your Marco, you can use Otama Sabo on a 7-down turn, and you are good to go. They are gone, and now you have a 7K body on the board, which is really, really nice. He also costs 6, so a little harder for Sakazuki and Enel to remove him. Now, the actual MVP of this deck, who I'm debating bringing this up to 4 because this card is so good, and I loved when I saw it. I wouldn't want to see it too much because it's so bricky, which is why I think I'm okay with 3, and I saw it enough. But it's just so good that I'm thinking about bringing it to 4. Anyways, we got Ace. Obviously, Ace is a rush card. He does minus 3,000 on 2 characters, and when you're able to get your Isos, Zidans, Robins to stick for a couple of turns, Ace gets so much value because now you're swinging 2K into characters that are formerly 5K, 6K, and removing them. And so Ace is so good against Sakazuki, against Enel, all this stuff. Like, great card against Purple Luffy. Really, really amazing card. Easy 3 of, maybe a 4 of. And then to finish off with our attackers, we have 2 new gates. I initially, when I was building this list, was like, oh, I'm going to do 0 new gates. Like, Newgate isn't really relevant this meta. Sakazuki will remove him. He's kind of slow. And he did work. I won so many games just because I was able to play Newgate, sit at 7K as my leader, hold up 1 Dawn for Rad Beam, and then just wait. They tried to go for game. They couldn't. And then the next turn, I hit him with like Ace, Newgate, and then like my leader and whatever else I had. And yeah, I just won. So yeah, Newgate did work. I think 2 is the right number. I saw him pretty much every single game. Sometimes I saw both of him in the game. So he pops up a lot. 2, and yeah, 2 is definitely the right number, but such a good card, surprisingly good. Still in OP05. I think it did well. It's like a really nice top end, and it gives you some options. There were a couple turns or a couple matches where I didn't want to play the Newgate, but it's really the only choice I had. and I didn't have a lot of counter in hand. I didn't have the Rad Beam, and sometimes just being at 7K really alters their play. So yeah, it's a good card. No thoughts. I think two is no thoughts. 2 is the right number. It's good. Okay. Now for the exciting stuff with Ace, which is our events, we have one Seaquake. So searchable by Ezo, an alternative to Robin. Just a really nice card. The trigger is helpful. Minus 3,000 power on a leader or character, so it can help you out of a pinch if you see it as a trigger. And we do like our triggers. Yeah, we got our Seaquake. I think it's good at 1. Maybe I remove Seaquake just to get a little more consistency, but this deck doesn't have like too many direct removal options. So you got 5 across these 2 guys, and then you got 3 across these 2. Your Robin and your Seaquake, and so that's 8 kind of direct removal options that are on the lower cost side. So I mean, if you remove the Seaquake, it's a little harder to get rid of things like Rebecca and like 5Ks and 6Ks and things like that. But you see Marco a lot, so you could definitely still do it. It's nicer in the early game too, because you pair it with Otama when you're on your 2 or 3 Dawn turn, and it's not really expected. Next, we have 4 Rad Beams, defensive MVP of the deck. It wins you so many games just to be able to hold out one more turn with those Rad Beams. No comments. 4 of, always 4 of. Definitely don't lower it. Keep it. Go down to 2 life. Use your Rad Beams. You'll win games. All right, next we got 3 Crossfire. So Crossfire either allows us to bring down a character minus 4,000 either on their turn or on our turn. So it's a counter, and it's also an offensive card, and we like to use it offensively. Pairs really well with Sabo. So if they have a Rebecca and a Lucci, you can use this and kill both of them. If they have like a Hina and a Branu, you can use this, the Crossfire and Sabo, and kill both of them. Crossfire puts like Yamato at 5K, so Crossfire plus Otama plus Marco kills a Yamato. Like, that's pretty awesome. It's a great card. I really like it, and I pair it with one of the Fire Fist, which has the same effect as Crossfire, with 2 differences. One, you cannot use the counter, so you can't do the minus 4,000 on your opponent's turn as a counter card. And 2, it says if you're at 2 life, you minus 4,000, and then you can kill a character that has 0 power. Most notably, characters with 0 power are known as Rebecca in this meta. And so you're able to minus Lucci, kill Rebecca, and now Lucci's 2K, and you can pop Lucci with Marco, or you can use Sabo to kill Lucci and like something else. Maybe Lucci and Branu or something, if you lower Branu. So the funny thing is, I was actually like around round 5 or 6, I was thinking through changes, and I was saying this card's like hasn't been useful. I don't think I'm going to keep playing it. And then I finally saw my second Sakazuki of the day, and this card, that exact combo worked off. I was able to kill Rebecca. I was able to kill something else. Like, I got some great momentum off of it. And so I might keep it as a 1 of. I might take it out and just put it for Crossfire. I'm not too sure, but like those are kind of the options. And I apologize if you hear signs in the background. This is New York City. It kind of happens. And lastly, we got 3 Flame Emperor. Amazing card. I think couple of things you should realize about Flame Emperor. There will come turns where you're deciding, do I play Flame Emperor or do I play Ace? And it's very tempting to play Flame Emperor because it's guaranteed removal. Maybe it's guaranteed removal of 2 characters because you're able to swing into something with the 8K if you choose to do that instead of the double attack. But I found that the momentum I lose from not playing a character that turn is sometimes not worth it. And so I'm almost always prefer to play Ace on my 7 Dawn turn unless I have a huge board already, in which case I'll play Flame Emperor and then capitalize on that board. The other thing is I saw it a lot. There were a couple games where I saw all 3. So I think 3 is the right number because it is a really good card. It's what you need to remove top end. So you can Otama and remove Yamatos. You can kill Katakuris. But the other thing I wanted to mention is like it's a very much a double-edged sword into yellow right now because they have so many triggers in their deck. There was actually a match I lost because I Flame Empered Yamato and then their life was a Sanji, and that drastically changed the attacks the subsequent turn, and I just didn't have enough counter to survive. So be very careful with Flame Emperor into yellow. It's sometimes not worth it, but you do have to remove those bigger bodies, and Flame Emperor helps you do that. Okay, this is the list. Let's talk about matchups. First matchup I had, Sakazuki, felt really good. Um, it was very close. I did not have a lot of counter in my hand, but I did have a Rad Beam. And I on one turn, he played double Borsalino. And so on his board, he had Sabo, Borsalino, Borsalino. And I had Marco and Ace. And he also had Rebecca. And he didn't have a lot of cards in hand. And so what I did was I swung 6K with Marco. I swung 7K with Ace. I played Newgate, and I swung 7K with Leader. And I thought that he would have to counter out with at least one Sabo Borsalino because he only had 2 cards in hand. But those cards happened to be 2Ks, and so he was able to block with Rebecca and then counter out with those 2Ks. Like block and counter. And that made a huge difference because now I'm sitting with like 3 cards in hand. I think I had 1 life, and he had a Sabo, a Borsalino, and his Leader. And my only thing is I'm at 7K right now. And thankfully, because I had Rad Beam, I had enough that no matter what he did, I won. Because I had a Rad Beam and I ended up having 3 1Ks. And so that was enough to keep me in the game. And then I just won the next turn because he had a swing with his blockers to try to kill me. But it was a very scary game. Newgate was really the MVP in that one. But having the Marco and the Ace on the board, Marco and Ace on the board, was a huge pressure. And they're much harder for Sakazuki to remove than a lot of the other cards in the deck. So really good. Next matchup was a purple Luffy. I lost that one, and neither me or him had amazing hands, but I definitely had a bad one. I was seeing a lot of 2Ks. Like my opening hand was okay. I think I had a Zoro in it and like a Searcher and stuff like that, like a dodge Zoro and some events. I was like, okay, this is a good hand for the early game. But then I just kept seeing 2Ks. Like I remember I whiffed my Dodon search, and in that search I saw 3 Jozus and like a Crossfire and something else. So I was desperately looking for my top end. It didn't really come through. He was able to go super wide. I played Ace at one point to clear some things. I didn't kill enough of his board. And then ultimately he just had too much life and too many bodies. And I just ran out of steam and lost. I don't know like what the answer is to that matchup. I think if I saw more of my Marcos and Sabos, that would have been good to, remove some of his bodies and then play my own larger bodies. I did get a Newgate out. It did help a little bit, but because almost all of his attackers are 6K anyways, it's not great into Purple Luffy. It's really easy for him to get to that 7K threshold. And yeah, he didn't see Kaido. He didn't see Polly. It wasn't enough. We did kind of talk about it, and there was on my last turn there was an alternative route where I Flame Empered and just went for it, and it would have been close. I would have been able to go 11K, and that he would have had over after he drew his life. He would have had exactly enough counter to get out of the second swing. So I would have lost even if I did that. He ended up bluffing with a 1-drop Blast Breath, so I didn't do that, and yeah. I think one of the decisive things in that match was he killed my character Ace because I didn't have enough counter power. I had a lot of events that I could pitch for my leader to keep him alive, but I didn't have enough like counter that I could use for characters. And he was able to kill this, and that extra swing would have made a huge difference in that next turn. So keeping your characters alive is really, really important in that matchup. Your Aces, your Sabos, and your Marcos are really important in that matchup, and I think that's probably one of my biggest lessons there. My third match was a red-purple Law. Nothing too interesting to say about that one. I just tried to get as much removal as possible. I tried to clear his board and not give him too many resources, and then I just rushed him down. Like once I was removing his characters, I was just rushing him down as quickly as possible, and I just managed to counter out of a lot of swings because at one point he like overwhelmed me, like too many bodies on board, so I was just going for game, and I managed to counter out, and I got there. So we're good on red purple Law. Fourth round was Enel. Yes, was Enel. Wait, 4 was Enel. Was 4 Enel? Who am I missing? Oh yeah, fourth round was Enel. I won that one very narrowly. I was kind of in a pickle. He had me. I think he had like 1 life, and it didn't look like I was gonna win. So I just swung like 7K, 8K, and he took the first one. He took the second one. even though he had like 5 or 6 cards in hand, and then I just swung 10k with my Newgate, and I got it. He didn't have counter. He didn't pull triggers. I just got lucky, and yeah, that was the game. I think he had like a big hand. He had 1 life, so he was able to get 2 life with his ability, and I just had to go for game because I lost the next turn. There was nothing I could do, and he just didn't have counter. He didn't get any triggers, and I just happened to win. And so that was it. Didn't feel like a great way to win because it felt like I almost lost. And I'm trying to refine this deck for um, Treasure Cup and stuff like that. And so I need to have a better matchup into Enel, and that one wasn't super telling on whether or not like this deck does well into Enel. I don't really know. I'll have to rewatch the VOD on that one and my other Enel match later on. I don't really know like what the strategy is against Enel when you're playing as Ace. I think obviously bodies on board is really important, but you're on a clock because Enel will wear you down. You don't have that many blockers, and so if you go too slow, he will will you down. You know, they like to use Katakuri's to get like Sabos and Marcos and Aces on the bottom of your deck, on the bottom of your life. So you can't just like leave them up and hold them at 2 life for too long. That was one of the mistakes I made against the last or the first Enel. I had a Sabo and a Newgate, and I just wasn't putting any pressure on him because I was using most of my Dawn to remove things, and so I didn't want to just do free attacks that got him to 1 life and like let him get free value out of the Yamato, which is kind of I think standard. But because of that, I also wasn't putting any pressure on him, and he was able to kind of freely build his board back up every time I remove things. So yeah, that's a tough matchup. It's one I need to review, but I did win that one. So at this point, I'm 3-1. My round 5 was another Enel, and this one didn't go as well. I did lose this one. This is the one where I Flame Empered, and I think it was the best choice at the time, but he got a Sanji, and so then he was swinging at me with Leader, Ohm, Holy, and Sanji, and I only had 1 life. Or 2 life. I had 2 life, and yeah, I shouldn't have enough counter in hand. I got lucky and saw Crossfire in my life, and that helped me get rid of the Holy's attack, but he still had another attack with Sanji and Leader, and I just didn't have any counter, so I was done. If there was an option for me to leave 1 Dawn up on the previous turn as a bluff for Radical Beam, and he said if I had done that, he would have Katakuri to Sanji into his life, which may have been able to win me the game. So I think utilizing the Rad Beam bluff a little more is something I'm going to do in my future matches. And next round was a Lucci, actually. Super scary game. He used Air Door 3 times. He got 2 off life, and then he played 1. But I had Flame Emperors and Aces and stuff like that, and so I was able to beat him down and just rush him and go for game. But very, very scary game. The Newgate, again, was clutch there because on his final turn, he didn't have a way to win. There was like I had only a few cards in hand, but because I was at 7k and a lot of his bodies were 5k, he didn't have a way to win, and he didn't have like cheap removal for Marco so he couldn't do like a really big double attack with Leader because he would have had to use all of his Dawn to remove Marco in the first place. So yeah, that was a win. That was good. And then round 7 was another Sakazuki, and very, very good victory. I think it seemed like he bricked up a little bit, but just was rushing him again. Played Newgate, I think, of that matchup, which was really helpful. Flame Emperor was great. Ace was great. I think I used my Fire Fist for the first time on that one. Yeah, overall great matchup. I feel really, really good about the Sakazuki matchup. It's very winnable. You just want to put on a lot of pressure. And yeah, I think the one thing that I did in that matchup that was kind of a mistake is I was going first. I played Izo. And then on my next turn, I just, instead of putting 3 Dawn on Izo and swinging 5k, I played Zoro. And he Lucci'd both of them the following turn. And I was able to remove the Lucci eventually, but it was probably not worth it. Later on, he mentioned that because he did that, he didn't have a Hina in his trash to remove stuff on like a more important turn. But I still think that was a mistake because I could have used that Zoro on the next turn. So I could have still gotten my 2 5k swings in and then use that Zoro on another turn to get a 7k swing in and put in more pressure that way. So yeah, I think that was the only mistake I made in that Sakazuki matchup, but I won, and that brought us to the record I mentioned, which was 5-2. My goals before Saturday are to just refine the list a little bit better for the matchups against Enel and Katakuri. But other than that, yeah, I think I'm playing A's on Saturday at Treasure Cup, and hopefully we'll see more Sakazukis and less Enels, and we'll have a good lucky day and can come back to you guys with like a really nice deck profile that topped. If not, whatever. It was fun. I really liked playing Ace. I had a good time. It was scary. I were a lot of close calls, but we got there and it was fun. And so I was really happy to be able to play an off meta leader in a large scale tournament. I know there were a couple people playing interesting things. Like I played the Lucci. Another guy brought a Kinemon. He was doing pretty well. I think he ended up 5-2 as well. So yeah, I'm sure Egman's going to put out his video this morning going over all the lists. So definitely check that out if you want to see the other lists that made it. And overall, it was a really, really fun tournament. Thanks to him, as always, for hosting. And hopefully next time I can actually crack top 16 again. But I am happy with 20th place, 5-2. I think it was a really good showing for Ace. And I have some good insights and good recordings of all those matches. So I'm going to review them and figure out, where does this list need to go to be just that little bit better to win those matches that were losses. But yeah, that's the list. That's the matchups. That's my thoughts. I rambled a little bit. I'm tired. Definitely talked a lot, but hope that was interesting. Hope that was helpful. Leave some comments in the video. Tell me what you guys think. Really, really appreciate everyone who's been subscribing and commenting and chatting and coming out to the streams. It's been so much more positive than I ever thought it would be. I did not think I would get any kind of traction on YouTube. I was just going to do it for myself, but you guys have been awesome, and I really, really appreciate it. And I've been having a lot of fun exploring different decks and finding things that I hope are interesting for you guys. All right. Have a good one, guys.